right, so I want to make sure I had a video of me going over this for people that may have been absent when we went over it in class, or may just need to hear me go through it instead of just seeing their notes. So this is the Desmos activity. It was linked as activity number 1 in our unit 3 for linear relationships. And what it's going to do is it's giving us some really valuable notes to use as we go through this unit. These notes will be helpful to come back to periodically throughout this unit, maybe every day for some people. They'll also be helpful later in the year as we do some spiral review, and probably even next year when you go into Algebra 1. So let's take a look at what we need to do. First things first, I want you to know that you are going to be writing an equation in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form is the form of y equals mx plus b, where m is always the slope, b is always the y-intercept, and they're numbers that we're going to plug in for that. We have talked a lot about this in class recently, so I hope you've been paying attention. These first 4 examples are going to be how we identify the equation from a graph. So you can see we've got this graph here. There is 3 points that are plotted on the line. The first step that we need to do is to identify, the slope. And what slope is it's how steep a line is. We identify the slope using the term rise over run. And I'm going to go ahead and just jot this down in here. And as I told my students in class, pretty much if I'm writing it down, you should be writing it down the exact same way on your notes so that you have it to look back at. So what the rise over run is, oh, sorry guys, the rise is our up and down distance. The run is our left to right distance. And the way this is described is we're going to create what look like steps on our graph. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use that line tool right here in the middle. And I'm going to take my step going from point A up to point B. So on the line tool, if I started at A, I can let it go here. This is the step of the part of the step that goes up. And then over here, this is the part that goes to the side. So now my point is the rise is how tall that step is. If I count the blocks, it's 1, 2, 3 blocks tall. Oops, why is that doing that? So we would know that our rise is 3. Our run is now, I've turned 1, 2. Our run is now 2. So when I go here to identify my slope, our slope is rise over run. Still write that as a fraction. Whoops. Our rise, that up and down distance was 3. Our run, that across distance was 2. So our slope for this line is m equals 3 over 2. Now I need to identify a y-intercept. The y-intercept on the graph is where the line that's graphed crosses over the y-axis. That's referred to as point B. So the y-axis is the axis that goes up and down. Well, my stylus is just not cooperating. I'm just going to have to use my finger. So this is the y-axis. If I look at this red line right here, and this y-axis right here, they meet up right there. This is our B. This point right here is our B. The number that point is on the y-axis is what our y-intercept is. So in this situation, our y-intercept is at 0 because that's at 0 on the y-axis. Now, the y-intercept can be written one of 2 ways. It can be written as a number or as an ordered pair. If it's an ordered pair, the x value is always 0. The y value is whatever it is on the y-axis. In this case, it happens to be 0. So now that I've got my slope identified, now that I've got my y-intercept identified, I need to just take those two numbers and plug them into that equation. So I start off with y equals mx plus b. And then I'm going to come down here and I'm going to rewrite it. Only instead of an m and a b, I'm going to put in my numbers. So y equals, now instead of an m, I'm going to put this 3 over 2. I'm going to add that x on there. Plus, and instead of a b, now I'm putting 0. Now, what I do want you to know is this equation, because it's plus 0, whenever I add 0, it doesn't change anything. So this equation could also be written as y equals 3 over 2 x. As you're doing this, make sure you hit submit so it saves your work. Let's take a look at another example. Same idea. We are going to take our line tool, and the first thing we're going to do is identify this slope. We know that it's going to be rise over run. I'm just going to get myself started. So now when I look back at my graph, I'm going to get my line tool. I'm going to go from A over to B. So I'm going to click on A, go up, and click again. No. And come over. I could even keep going if I wanted to continue the staircase, but I don't need to. Now I'm going to count. I'm going to count my rise and my run. My up and down distance, this distance right here, is only 1 block. So my rise is only going to be 1. My horizontal distance is 2 blocks. So my run is going to be 2. So my rise we said was 1. Your run you said was 2. That means our slope is 1 over 2. That can't be reduced. That fraction would stay exactly as it is. Next thing I need to identify is a y-intercept. Remember, the y-intercept is where this red line crosses this y-axis. And I can tell they meet right there. Now, where you have to be careful, this right here is our origin. It's 0, 0. This, where it crosses, is below the origin, which means that our x value is going to be negative. And it's 1 box below, so our y-intercept is a negative 1. Now I just need to write my equation. Y equals mx plus b. Now I'm going to retype it, only instead of an m, I'm going to put my slope up here. We said our slope was 1/2. And then this time we said our y-intercept was a negative 1. Now, I would not be a very good math teacher if I didn't tell you this. As your 8th grade teacher, I'm okay if you leave your equation looking like this. But I do need to tell you, your high school teacher probably isn't going to appreciate me not showing this to you, so I have to. If you remember back from 7th grade, whenever you add a negative number, so this, see how this plus is right next to that minus? That represents the same thing as doing what? I hope you remember. Adding a negative is the same thing as subtracting. So that equation can actually be written without the addition sign. Y equals 1/2 x minus 1. Let's look at our next example. So here we've got another line. Now I hope you notice a difference between this line and the first two we did. This line is negative. Here's the key. I know this line is negative because it goes down from left to right. I always start my graph up here, or I always start my graph down here. Because my graph is starting on the left side and it's up here, the only place it can go is down. This line is decreasing or going down, which means that our slope will be negative. All right, so how that's going to affect my line is my m is going to have a negative rise because it's going to be going down instead of up. I'm going to go ahead right now and just give myself a little reminder. And I'm just going to put that negative symbol right there already. So now same thing applies. Starting at the A, make my step down now since I'm going down, and come over. Get my pencil, count my rise and run. 1, 2. So if I come over here, it's a -2. My run is 1, 2, 3. It's a +3 because it's always positive because we're running. So negative because it's down. The run is 3. So my slope is -2/3. Now I need a y-intercept. If I look at my graph, it crosses right there. And this time, it's 1 above the 0. So my y-intercept is a +1. Now I just need to fill in my equation. So y equals, oops, negative, yes, if Mrs. Lease doesn't put the negative, she's marking it wrong. -2/3 x plus 1. All right, last graph example for writing an equation. So now hopefully you're probably recognizing that this line is still going down, but there's no dots. Here's the cool part. You get to pick wherever you want. I'm going to go ahead and give you some. I'm always going to pick, whoops, that's not where I wanted it to be. I'm going to always pick my y-intercept, which is going to be right there. If I follow this line up, here's an, this is going to be challenging for me. There. No. Sorry. The stylus is not cooperating. Right there. Right there. My daughter did something to it. All right, so we're going to pretend those are as close as they can get, because they are, because my son's pen's not working very nice. Same idea. Draw your step. Oh, Lord, that was definitely not good. What is happening here? Sorry, my pen's really not cooperating. We're going to go with it. Here is 1, 2, 3. So we've got a -3 because we're going down. 1, 2, +2. So over here for my slope, we got -3 because it's going down, +2. Our y-intercept is right there. So that's going to be a -1. So my equation, y equals -3/2x plus -1, or y equals -3/2x minus 1. Stay tuned for part 2, where we learn how to find an equation from a table.